Is it?
What do they say?
This definitely looks like the lamb choppies because you got the this one there, the rib and the choppies. I think I'll dunk it in my. I'm going to dunk it this time. I'm going to go straight like the way we have it. Wow. I can see why Chandra suggested this. It tastes exactly like on the grill and out. Wow, amazing. Really nice. Amazing.
Tastes amazing.
Amazing, huh?
Mommy, try it, please.
This is the best mini lamb I've ever had.
Is it?
It's like I wanted to grab one with my hand.
Please, just take. You can even grab it with your hand. It's yeah, no formalities. Yeah, just do it like the way we do it. There we go.
That's how we do it.
This is the kind of lamb that you like.
And it actually literally smells like the one that we make with the Christmas apple.
That's really nice. Take it, Chandra. It's basically like
Succulent. Not overcooked. Absolutely amazing.
wow. Amazing.
This is.
This is so much South African.
Very much.
I'm sure we can taste it.
I'm sure it does.
Very nice. Wow.
All the chicken there, most like it, mini lamb chops, steak, Maladian.
There you go. See? So most of the cricketers like this.
Okay, no. Wow,
Very nice. Very nice. Wow.
don't use a knife there. Directly.
Directly there. Do it properly.
I like that.
That's why you do like this one.
Yes, yes.
There you go. 1, 2, there.
What's the more lamb chops?
Right there, yeah.
Ooh, and this chips soaked in the lamb chop sauce.
Yeah, take a lamb chop.
See, the true South African is coming out.
Gotta say, so good.
Wow. This is how you do it back home, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a shepherd's pie. Oh.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, garlic bread on the
Oh, thank you.
chicken lasagna.
Chicken lasagna is this one.
We have some garlic.
Sorry, what's your name?
Chicken lasagna.
Your name. Come on. Thank you, Kumar. Thank you. Wow, look at that.
That looks really, really good.
That looks like a decent portion, and that looks really nice.
They don't go back to their portions.
And look at that.
I can't
Shepherd's
wait to
pie.
drink this.
Very garlic.
Just like you love the garlic bread. Let me go for the garlic bread. I'll make sure I take the sauce.
We have a big plate of fire together with me.
Spoon.
Nice and cool.
Yeah. Ooh, that's cheesy.
That was really
Mmm.
Cheesy. Gonna see more of this?
Hot.
Very tomatoey. It's very good. Cheesy at the same time. And I like how the chicken is enough. Because sometimes places put too less of chicken in it. They put the right amount. So they mean serious, but it's even cheese with the chicken. So that's cheese. I mean, look at this. And got some caramelized onions. Oh,
That is like
Thank you.
and that cheese was a cup.
Caramelized onions with the lasagna.
Chicken cheeseburger.
Perfect, thank you.
It's one of the best lasagnas I've had. It's one of the best lasagnas I've had.
Is it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Now I can put it in shepherd's pie. I haven't had this in I don't know how long. Really, really good. Quite peppery, they've got some veggies in here as well. Awesome.
Just to say, shepherd pie because it retains the heat, doesn't it? How do you want shepherd pie? Burn your mouth most of the time.
But you, this is really good.
It looks like it's for me.
That is something because you like to eat carrot.
Just like shepherd's pie. Just like the best American and South African
Combo.
combo.
I can't wait.
What are you now?
I'm having the chicken cheeseburger. Or what they call? What did they call it, South Africa? I'm big onion. It's chicken. It's onion. Isn't it juicy? And it's very soft really. So delicious. Let's look at that.
I think you need to learn to get now.
It's a filet mignon. Filet mignon. And according to Riker, I'm having a minion. And this is medium. So I like the steaks. Usually I like steaks as medium. Let's give it a go. This definitely reminds me of stuff in South Africa. Typical that kind of a setup. But let's give it a go. I kid you not. This feels like I'm fighting. It's like getting transported to Spur or Porterhouse or South African steak. You go to any of the South African restaurants, and obviously if you order a steak and a medium, I'll say a medium cooked. That's exactly, but lots of flavors. I'm very good.
Is all of these flavored restaurant best?
And this is also, most of the players that come here, this is one of the things that they eat. That is what Chandra told me. So obviously, there's a reason why it's their favorite. But even though it's very simple, it's got tons of flavors. Wow. I think it would be unfair if I had this on my own. Because I'm 100% sure that Lulu behind the camera, and I can see Marika as well. I think I'll give you a bite check. It's amazing. It's amazing. I think no words. You can just see the expression. It's very
Never
flavorful.
had steak before.
It's very flavorful. It's very nice. Try this. You're not a medium rare fan, but believe me, you're gonna love this.
It's actually really, really good.
Very nice.
It's lots of flavor. Very succulent.
So definitely when you come here, go with Chandra's flavor, Chandra's recommendations. Oh, amazing. Amazing. I think I'll give you a little bit of shepherd's pie if you just drop me a bit of it. Guys. I can see, as the history of this place says, why it is called the only place. Believe me, that Japanese guy was not wrong. This is amazing. This is like American, but so close to South African, so close that it's, believe me, it's.
Yeah, I'm giving you
I'm lost for words, but yeah. And
giving you a good helping. It's got like a crust at the bottom as well.
this is something very common we eat at home back in South Africa. Shepherd's pie.
Yeah.
It's easy to cook. You just can't make it, put it in the oven, and yeah,
Optional.
there you go. So this is something. You know, it like takes me back to the time we're sitting in our front room, sitting and watching TV, sitting and watching a cricket match, and Lulu dishes up this and brings and gives us for dinner. Believe me, it just feels exactly like that. Only difference is we gotta put a bit of a we like to put a bit of a paprika on top,
Yeah.
just that smoky paprika. That's the one difference. And it's not as peppery, but definitely I like this in terms of the pepperiness. But wow. Never expected to get my hands or to get our hands on something like this. Guys, amazing. Chandra, thank you so much. And guys, at the only place, now we know why you're the only place. So I think I'll just jump in and steal somebody's lasagna. Little bit. As we go. It's the color of my t-shirt, so
Yeah, so you have to.
What is this
I think
for
that's
my
good.
burger?
Hmm?
Is this for burger?
It's very tomatoey, but you don't feel the tomato overpowering, and it's amazing, huh? Very nice. Very nice. To get chicken lasagna is not easy, right? Because sometimes chicken doesn't come, but this is done beautifully. And this is Liam's burger. So crunchy, that onion is sweet, crunchy. Wow, tons of flavor. I could taste the chicken in there. I could taste everything. That onion was the highlight in Liam's chicken burger. Amazing, wow. You should have left some more onions for me. That was an amazing chicken burger. Oh, there we go. I got a small little speck.
That's a chop.
Nothing was price. It is. You're looking at, I would say, classified as fine dine.
Yeah.
But, well, in Bangalore, which is rated among one of the top destinations in food, when it comes to food, I think it's ranked number 13 among the magazines that we saw. Places like these are the ones that basically put Bangalore on the global map. That was super delicious. Now to finish off with some garlic bread with some mustard sauce in between, and taking the spoils of the steak and a little bit of malaika, the lasagna that you gave me. Yeah, not bad. Amazing. That is like proper English mustard. Proper English mustard.
And it's very potent.
You gave me a brain shock more than what the wasabi did in the sushi video. But amazing. Definitely a good experience for all 4 of us. Wow. Food on the spot.
Yeah.
That's your waffles.
That's the pastry on top. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Here's a spoon for you, my dear.
I think you guys are not good.
Yeah, we'll go first.
Have I had apple pie before? Because I can't remember if I've had apple pie.
Yes, I think you have. But I'll take the first bite, just without me first. That's not very sweet. It's cinnamony. Ice cream, yeah?
That's cinnamon roll. For apple.
It's going to put a bit of premium, just a little bit of premium. You taste the cream first.
Apple cream more.
Without the cream more? Yeah, with the cream, always everybody's got the cream. But it's nice, actually. I actually like it with the cream though.
I don't. They won't show their apples.
I want to have a
Ugh.
There's a ship coming in. It's coming into.
It's coming to Cape Town.
Oh, I thought it was coming into Fort Kochi, into Kochi fishing, to Kochi Harbor. Now it needs a tug. It needs a tug to pull it. Tops. Yeah. Yes. Now we need to offload.
I'm gonna have a little.
Let's have a little bit and see. So this is highly recommended for this place.
I'm gonna try.
Let me try. That was a bit of the back portion, but there's a lot of apples in here. There's a lot of apples in there. It's quite sweet. It's quite sweet. I don't know how to defend it, but I find it very sweet. But again, that is me. I'm a bit fussy when it comes to sugar.
Yeah,
So yeah,
taste.
there we go. Let's drop some.
And you know, I do not like a lot of cinnamon in any of my food.
Maybe that this will be able to take the sweetness. Let's give it a go.
The fresh crema.
The fresh cream.
I'm not going to cream, I'm going to crema. Important.
For me, the cream kind of reduces the sweetness, but also gives a bit of a that yeah, the kind of a creamy taste. But nice, very nice, very different. But like I said, I'm not a sweet person, so for me, it's really sweet. Yeah.
Is French evolving new verb conjugations? For the past few decades, linguists have been debating this claim, but it's kind of controversial. By conjugation, we're talking about how verbs agree with their subjects, like the difference between I eat and he eats. The S at the end there indicates that the subject is third person singular. Now, French already has extensive conjugations in writing, but when pronounced, a lot of these forms sound the same. And one of these forms isn't even really used in spoken French, so it sure seemed as if French is starting to lose its conjugation. So to compensate, French might be developing new ones. Subject pronouns can often be reduced to such an extent that sometimes they just stick on to the very next verb, in effect creating a new set of conjugations. So instead of je peux, tu peux, il peut, you get je peux, tu peux, il peut. But hang on, are these really new conjugations, or is it just a sort of contraction? Like in English, when instead of saying you know, we say you know. Well, that's the big debate. Are these just contractions, or do they really qualify as verb conjugations? If you ask me, it's the latter. First off, French does these contractions way more than in English, to such an extent that sometimes the pronoun gets fused into the verb. Another piece of evidence is repeated verbs. In English, I could say something like, she sings and she dances, but I could also just say, she sings and dances. I don't have to repeat the pronoun. But I do have to repeat the verb conjugation. Now this is also true for standard French, but in colloquial French, you almost always hear elle chante et elle danse. The repetition of a pronoun kind of makes it seem like it's behaving more like a verb conjugation, but one of the strongest pieces of evidence is subject doubling. Now in English, we'll do this sometimes to mark emphasis or to draw contrast. Like, John, he sings, but me, I dance. But spoken French does this way more often. According to some estimates, up to 70% of the sentences made by young French speakers contain subject doubling. That's like if me, I spoke like this, even though us, we're not too used to it. Though y'all, you'd probably adjust after a while. French speakers, they do this all the time, which for us, we might find a little bit strange. This phenomenon, it's normally reserved for contrast or emphasis, at least in English. But those things, they aren't always present in French. But what if they're not doubled subjects at all? Instead, you could just analyze it as a single subject followed by a verb conjugation. After all, this is how verb conjugation evolves in the first place. The Bantu languages, for example, have extensive verb conjugation, but go back to their common ancestor, and it's believed that these conjugations were originally independent pronouns that got attached to the verb. So has French gone through the same thing and evolved new conjugations? Well, it's hard to be definitive. There's a lot of literature on this subject, and it's impossible to summarize it all in just 3 minutes. If nothing else, we can certainly say that French is on track to develop new conjugations quite soon, if they haven't gotten there already. So who knows? Instead of learning conjugations like je sais, tu sais, il sait, future French speakers will learn moi sais, toi sais, lui il sait. Is French evolving new verb conjugations? For the past few decades, linguists have been debating this claim, but it's kind of controversial. By conjugation, we're talking about how verbs agree with their subjects, like the difference between I eat and he eats. The S at the end there indicates that the subject is third person singular. Now, French already has extensive conjugations in writing, but when pronounced, a lot of these forms sound the same. And one of these forms isn't even really used in spoken French, so it sure seems as if French is starting to Is French...
This is by far one of the most unusual but eye-opening scientific studies. It's colloquially known as the Strip Club study. This 2007 study, published in Evolution and Human Behavior, asked a question that had never been asked before. Do women earn more money while they're ovulating? And if so, does that mean men are subconsciously responding to fertility cues even in a species where ovulation is supposed to be completely hidden? Here's how they tested it. For 60 days, 18 dancers logged their work shifts, their menstrual cycles, and what they earned in tips each night. By the end, researchers had data on 296 5-hour shifts representing roughly 5,300 lap dances. And there was a pattern. A big one. During menstruation, dancers earned an average of $185 per shift. During the luteal phase, the lower fertility window after ovulation, that number jumped to around $260. But during that fertile window right around ovulation, average earnings climbed to $335 per shift. That's nearly double. But this was the detail that made it even more fascinating. Dancers using hormonal birth control didn't show this pattern at all. Their earnings stayed essentially flat across the entire month. So why does this even matter? Because most animals overtly display their fertility loudly. There's visible swelling, scent changes, behavioral shifts that announce I'm in a fertile window. Humans are supposed to be that exception. Our ovulation is notoriously invisible even for the women experiencing it. And yet here's a room full of men with zero information about anyone's menstrual cycle and dancers who weren't consciously aware of any pattern either, and money was still moving differently during the fertile window. Researchers think it might be small things, subtle shifts in scent, facial symmetry, waist to hip ratio, voice, even how someone moves or what they choose to wear. None of it is consciously detectable, but it was potentially still doing something. To be clear, this study isn't claiming men have some superpower for sniffing out ovulation. It's suggesting something more interesting, that human fertility might not be as hidden as we've always assumed. We like to think we've evolved past our biology, but this study is a pretty good reminder that we haven't, or at least not entirely. But honestly, the study left us with a bigger question. How much of our behavior and the choices we think are fully ours are actually just being driven by biology we can't see and don't control? If you like this video, then make sure
What we have here are more machines. What we have here are more machines that we were able to pick up for pennies on the dollar at a local auction. Yeah, we have this thing here, compressor. We have a giant power supply thing. We have this absolute behemoth over here, supposed to be an electron beam reactor.
And what's that thing on the side?
Oh, that thing. That is a lot of the electronics to run it. And I took the risk of not strapping it to the wall because I was too lazy. And it decided to alter its position during transit.
Oh, yes.
That's a great point of shame, actually.
Well, gotta get everything out of here then, I guess.
This is just stuff. Alright. You got this old power supply. Look at these bungee cords. There was an attempt. We can always claim there was a vague attempt. I mean, it really was there.
You gotta lift this one to the crusher prior to the crusher.
Yeah, that's fine. It's easy. Okay. Go, go, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What was that? It felt like it suddenly got way harder, and Nigel is carrying the brunt of weight. Carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. Yeah, you're good. You got it. It's so fast. Woo! Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, we're good. Now I'll hold it here. Yeah. It's like a harpoon in the front. Yeah. 1, go. Oh, okay. Woo! I'm a bit more concerned about this because the other very tough.
Yeah, but it's okay.
We did it. That was an incredible mission, and I think it was a success. Let's see what we. I'm just pulling it by the harpoon. Look at this. I honestly didn't think that we'd be able to one up the SEM acquisition, but we did it. This is the cryo pump. So that's like a pretty cool piece of machinery. This is a piston. Should be a pneumatic piston. So it'll lift this up, and this top part of the chamber comes out. And this is a whole motor assembly that spins trays on the inside. This opens it. Yeah, you can open it. Look at that. Look at those things. I actually do not know what this chamber is for. At the very least, the thing that I really just wanted the most out of all this is this giant chamber here. It's a high back chamber. And you can, like, I don't know, load and unload things with that. We also have this, which is like the compressor. This, too. This is the, I guess it's like the control panel. Look, you have all the little things. And yeah, if you look at the back, it's pretty cool. I can smell the gold in here. No, I'll tell you this part. What I really wanted was this. I'm kind of sad. This pump was in the auction, and I thought it worked. But when we picked it up, the guy's like, "Oh yeah, the motor's fried." And I'm like, "Oh, well, that completely wrecked some of my dreams." Here's a power supply. We got some other doodads on top. I do not know where these came from or what they are. Oh, I feel like that's the shutter control. If nothing works, just this switch. Well, it's good home. We'll better idea what's going on. Okay, right, we'll be back.
See you later. Huh?
Can't see them up there.
Ah, shit, this last day was kidding. What's it this guy? Oh, look.
Dare you
Where did you see it? I'll find.
Something there! With me!
I'm going to find you.
Get him out! You won't win! You can't hide forever.
For 500 years, Europe had a mystery it couldn't solve. Where did the Roma come from? Nobody knew. They appeared in the Middle Ages, spread across the world.
Okay, Google, turn off light.
Bedroom light off.
Spoke a language no one knows. Europe guessed Egypt, which is exactly where the word gypsy comes from. It was wrong. The answer wasn't in any history book. It was hiding in your grammar. In the 1700s, a Hungarian student named István Papi met Indian scholars at the Dutch University. He listened to them talk and froze. Human words. Honey, honey, knock, knock. Water, nose. The number 3, one after another, Romanian lined up with Hindi and Punjabi. Not more. Inherent. A language had walked into the river of India 1,000 years ago, crossing the entire continent on foot, and after all those centuries, all those quarters, it's still remembered. Welcome to the Airline Language Show. Today, we're going to trace that walk because the Romani language is mile by mile one of the most remarkable migration stories ever told. And it's a story where the words themselves are the evidence. If this video sent you down a rabbit hole in the Indo-European family, which it should, Erlo is built for exactly this. Real language and context, tested so it sticks. 30 plus languages, links in the description. Now, let's start. The first question is, why did they leave? The honest answer is, I don't know for certain. Historical records for departure are hidden. What we have is linguistic evidence, and that evidence points clearly to northwestern India, the region that is today Rajasthan, Punjab, and the Sindh. The Romani language shares core vocabulary and grammar with Hindi, Punjabi, and especially the Rajasthani language cluster. We're talking about the deepest layer of language, of the borrowers, of the loanwords, the grammar. Romani has the same case system as Sanskrit descended languages, the same verb conjugation logic, the same structure we need. When you compare water, pani in Romani, pani in Hindi, or nose, nak in Romani, nak in Hindi, or hand, vast in Hindi, hop in Hindi, you're not looking at borrowing. You're looking at the same branch of the same tree. The leading theory among linguists today is that the ancestors of the Roma were likely a group, or several groups, connected to military or artisan communities who began moving westward sometime in the 9th or 10th century CE, possibly pushed by the Ghaznavi invasions of northwestern India, possibly moving as service communities alongside armies. The historical record doesn't give us a clear answer, but the language does. It says, we started here. Here's the thing that makes Romani extraordinary as a linguistic artifact. Every major stop on the migration route left its mark in vocabulary. The loan words don't just show what the Roma borrowed, they show in rough sequence where they went and how they stayed. The language is a GPS trail, recorded in real time over 1,000 years. Persian. After leaving India, the migration moved through Persia, modern-day Iran. Persian loanwords in Romani cover practical vocabulary of daily life. Vav, from Persian, vav. Zor, strength, from Persian, zor. These aren't abstract concepts. They're the words you pick up when you're actually living somewhere, dealing with people, working, trading. Armenian. From Persia, the route moved north and west into the Armenian highlands. Armenian loanwords in Romani are significant enough that some linguists once thought that Romani had Armenian origins entirely. Both intertwined. Words for tools, metalworking, and trade entered the language. The Roma appear to have spent real time in the Armenian-speaking world, not just passing through. Byzantine Greek. This is where the triplet stands. The single largest non-Indian source of loanwords in Romania is Greek, specifically Byzantine Greek, the Greek of Eastern Roman Empire. And the quantity tells you something. This wasn't a good stop. The Roma appear to have spent centuries in Byzantine territory, what is today Turkey, Balkans, Greece. Byzantine Greek words entered Romanian in hundreds. Words for everyday objects, commerce, religion, social life. Home, road, from Greek dromos. Forum, town, from Greek foros. The Greek lyric is so thick that for a long time European scholars assumed Romanian was a Greek dialect. But it isn't. But it lived inside Greek-speaking civilization long enough that Greek became its second skin. The Romanian language is autobiography. Every layer is a chapter. In Hebrew, we open. Persian, Romanian, Byzantine, the middle. Europe, or the rest. In dozens of different languages as the Roma spread across the continent from the 14th century onward. The Roma began appearing in the historical record of Europe in the 14th century. Byzantine records mention them in Greece in the 1300s. German records placed them in the Holy Roman Empire by the early 1400s. By the middle of the 15th century, they had reached England, Scandinavia, and the Iberian Peninsula. The speed is remarkable. In roughly 100 years, a people who had taken centuries to cross from India to the Balkans spread to every corner of Europe. And everywhere they went, Europe was confused by them. They had a look, a culture, language, no category. The guesses Europeans made say more about European geography than anything else. Bohemia, people called them Bohemians. Little Egypt, a place name that floated around medieval geography for a region of the Peloponnese, gave rise to the theory that they were Egyptians, which gave rise to the word gypsy, which is still in circulation today. Despite being wrong on every count, they were not from Egypt. They were not from Bohemia. They were from India. And the evidence was right there, in their mouths, the whole time. It just took 300 more years and a curious Hungarian student at a Dutch university to notice it. Here's where the story gets complicated. Romania is spoken today by somewhere between 5 and 12 million people. The range reflects how difficult it is to count a community that has historically faced severe pressure to conceal its identity. Most estimates cluster around 6 to 8 million speakers across Europe, with significant communities in Romania, Bulgaria, Spain, Hungary, Slovakia, Turkey, and Brazil. That makes Romania one of the larger minority languages in Europe. Bigger than English, bigger than Basque, bigger than Irish. But Romania has no state. No country takes it as its national language. No institution, historically promoted it. For most of its existence in Europe, it was actively suppressed. In some countries, Roma was forbidden to speak their language, to practice it, to maintain their identity. The result is that Romani, pregnant, centuries of isolation, different contact languages, different pressures. The Romani spoken in Spain sounds different than the Romani spoken in Hungary, which sounds different from the Romani spoken in Turkey. Linguists classify these as dialects, but in some cases, they've diverged enough that mutual intelligibility is limited. The underlying Sanskrit structure is still there, and the core vocabulary is still shared. But the service has been shared by wherever the speakers happen to be. Welsh is a government Romanian. Basque is the Basque country. Irish is Ireland. Romania has nothing. And for much of its history in Europe, they had the opposite. There is no standard written meaning. Different communities use different writing systems, Latin, Cyrillic, when they write at all. Oral tradition has carried the language in ways that written tradition couldn't, because the Roma rarely in a position to build the institutions that written tradition required. This is a language that survived a millennium of migration, multiple thinkers, dozens of content languages, and centuries of possibility, entirely on the strength of people choosing to speak to each other. That's a different kind of durability in French, which had Versailles. A different kind of Arabic, which had the Quran. Romani survived on nothing. This part of the story has to be said directly. During the Second World War, the Roma were targeted by the Nazi regime for systematic extermination. The Holocaust, the Porajmos, meaning the devouring of suffocating dialects, killed between 250,000 and 500,000 people. The range exists because the Roma are so inadequately documented in official records that precise numbers are still contested by historians. Up to 70-80% of the Roma population in some European countries is killed. Entire communities, entire dialect chains, knowledge that had been transmitted orally for generations, from grandparents to grandchildren, was cut off. The Romani language survived, but the number of people who could be speaking it today, the songs that we've existed, the stories that we've told, the losses there are beyond calculation. The Roma received far less recognition in a post-war memory than other victims. Their genocide was not formally acknowledged by West Germany until 1982. Several European countries only acknowledged it decades later. The Parachutes remains one of the least discussed chapters of the Holocaust in mainstream education. This isn't an incidental to language story. When a community is persecuted, documentation disappears, speakers disappear. The suppression of a people and the suppression of their language are not separate things. They are the same thing. So here is what the Romani language actually is. It's a branch of Sanskrit that walked out of India around 1,000 years ago, picked up Persian, Armenian, and Byzantine Greek along the way, arrived in Europe, speaking something no European could place, survived 5 centuries of official hostility and social marginalization, nearly disappeared in the 20th century's forest monstrosity, and is still spoken today by millions of people across 3 continents. It is one of the most documented long-distance migrations in linguistic history, documented not by historians at the time, because nobody was writing it down, but by the language itself, which carried the evidence forward in its grammar, its core vocabulary, and its long word layers like sediment rock. No state, no institution, no official promotion. One of the most remarkable survival stories in the history of any language on Earth. And the next time someone tells you languages are just tools for communication, just practical instruments that rise and fall in usefulness, think about Romania. A language that was actively suppressed in country after country for centuries. A language whose speakers had every structural disadvantage. A language that disappeared. Languages survive when communities decide they're working in. That's the only reason Romani still exists today. And it turns out that reason is not. If this story reaches deeper into the Indo-European family, to Hindi, and to any of the languages Romani is related to, Heirloom is built for that. Contextual, practical, built to stick. Links in the description. See you in the next one. For 500.
In today's video, I am hanging out at the world's largest Indian rescue and rehabilitation center, with over 20,000 animals confiscated from the illegal pet trade and overcrowding. This facility has more birds than anywhere else on the planet, and probably more enclosures too. The Taurus Bird Sanctuary alone has over 10,000 enclosures, spanning over 1,000 acres, and has stadium-sized apiaries, which we'll be checking out later in the video. I'm going to be showing you some incredible creatures like this beautiful bald eagle and eating the deadliest bird on earth. Displaying never-before-seen bird enrichment and so much more. Look at it go! This is the most magnificent bird rescue in the world. Welcome to Vantar. And with all these birds, what better place to start than with one of the most iconic predators in the entire world? Oh my God, Sherman, what's going on, man? How are you, boys? There's bald eagles all over here. Welcome to our Raptor Training and Conditioning Center. How do you end up in the middle of India with bald eagles? Hi.
So these are all rescued birds or surrendered birds.
Okay.
And what happens is when some private collections and the owners pass away or they can't manage anything, or some of the zoos are shut down, they surrender the animals out here to us in Bandara. A lot of them are imprinted, they've already been used for other flying shows and everything else. So now these birds are conditioned out here and we practice some free flying with them. So they are mentally and physically stimulated out here as well.
Sherman, we're going to go down to your outdoor arena.
Yes.
And you're going to give them some exercise, is that right?
And you can have a good look at how we go about the daily physical conditioning for the birds.
Let's do it. And as I made my way down here, the eagles were already starting flying. Wow, that's close to my face. Oh, that doesn't terrify you at all?
Yeah, no.
No? You're used to it? Oh my God.
You've got very experienced trainers out here.
That's right. That like my heart stopped. I just see this huge wingspan, these claws coming in. That's crazy.
So, what we could like you to do if you want to, you can also fly the bird from your hand.
Are you sure?
Because this one is a little bit used to people.
Am I capable of doing this?
You should be. Born is a resident here.
Okay.
PJ will guide you regarding the tips so they can.
Okay, great.
Whoa. There you go. This is crazy. Now tell them to fly. Yeah, fly.
Whoa. Oh my God, that is so cool. I've never even touched a bald eagle before, let alone get to fly one. Now, is he going to recall back to me? And I can catch him?
Yeah.
Okay, this is crazy. I'll take a cobra or a mamba. This is like crazy.
Ready?
Oh my God, my heart is... Oh God. Wow! That might be one of the coolest things I've ever done in my entire life. How are you guys so nonchalant about this?
They unfortunately got used to it, but the thing is, the excitement still remains. And then you can see, look at the size of the bird and the wingspan, and don't forget, look at the size of the claws and the feet. See the size?
God.
It's almost the size of a big hand of ours.
That would rip through that forearm if you didn't have this claw.
Exactly, and if it was a completely wild bird, you wouldn't even dare do that. It's only because this bird has been imprinted and the weather condition is really terrible that we can actually do this training for these birds.
Watching these eagles soar is a reminder of what true freedom looks like when nature is allowed to thrive. But for most rescues, freedom looks a little different. For the birds that can't return to the wild, the next best thing is a space built around their needs. And today, I want to show you a new build being custom made specifically for a flock of rescued parrots. Now, this may look like an open-air construction site, but this is one of over 25 one-acre-sized mega aviaries in a place that has over 10,000 bird enclosures, all absolutely enormous and designed for the best habitat possible for the birds. So let's go see some more.
Okay, so Forrest, this is our newest aviary.
Oh my God, look at the size of this. Wow, what's in here?
In here we have over 30 species of different birds from Africa.
All African species. Now there's a waterfall and a river. I see saddlebills. Wow. Look at the size of this enclosure. I mean, there's literally a waterfall for the birds back there. And in this aviary is one bird in specific that is so stunning, it's hard to believe it's even real. Look at these birds. These are blue-eared starlings native to Africa. They are one of the most metallic and incredible-looking creatures. I mean, look at that male right there with his bright yellow eye and his dark blue to metallic-y light green plumage. It's absolutely incredible. I don't know if I've ever seen a more metallic, more majestic-looking starling. In a lot of places in the world, starlings are invasive, especially the European starling, and create tons of biological problems. But here, they have these contained, amazing-looking starlings. They might be the most beautiful color I've ever seen. This is only one out of hundreds of multi-species aviaries that Mutara has. And before we see more, I'm going to visit the deadliest bird on the planet and eventually hear the Imagine you're crawling through the North Australian bush when all of a sudden a literal velociraptor, look at this guy, oh my god, this giant cassowary, he's all posturing up, the color is sticking out in his waddle and his red here. Now this is an absolutely insane living velociraptor, literally the I jumped when he did that. I literally jumped because these guys are such dinosaurs. I mean, this is, oh, I'm probably getting too close. It's crazy how scared. Oh my god. These guys are so aggressive. Literally the deadliest bird in the world, the northern cassowary. And you can tell it's a northern because of that yellow patch behind his head there. But you see how aggressive they are. Imagine, as I was saying, you're walking through the bush in Australia, you hear that sound, and out stomps these crazy, mighty taloned birds that look like dinosaurs. They kick you in the chest, they hit you with that helmet, and they rip you apart with these unbelievable, giant, powerful claws. Literally the deadliest bird. That was insane. Woo!
For the sake of my own life, I don't think I'll be going inside of that bird. So as I head to another cassowary enclosure, something caught my eye. Not the bird whose call sounds like a machine gun, not the baby birds being taken care of in the hatchery, but something extremely unusual about a bird species you may be familiar with.
Look at these guys. Wow. Did you paint your pelicans pink?
No, they're actually pink pelicans.
So tell me a little bit about these beautiful pink pelicans. Here, guys, what's that?
So these are the birds from the Africa.
Uh-huh.
So we have not actually painted them pink. They're actually called the pink pelicans.
Okay.
They can hold up to 9 kgs of fish into their pouches.
9 kgs?
9 kgs.
So that's nearly 20 pounds of fish that these guys can hold in those big pouches under their bill. That's amazing. Now, are pink pelicans one of the pelican groups that have cooperative hunting?
Yeah. They have a cooperative hunting, and what they do is they make a oval kind of shape so that the fish can go up to the shore of the water body that they are living in.
And then they can hunt them in shallow. Wow. What is the conservation status of pink pelicans?
Oh, they are near threatened in the wild.
Is that from hunting or habitat loss or what?
Habitat loss and human disturbance.
I see. Interesting. You said they're one of the heaviest flying birds. What's the wingspan on the
Their
pink pelican?
wingspan is about like 1.6 to 1.8 meters.
That's like 6 to 9 feet. Wow. That's pretty big. I've come to Ventura today to tour around and see all the various amazing birds that you guys have. But this enclosure stands out just because this was built for the pelicans.
Exactly. So their enclosures are designed in such a way that they will all mimic whatever they find in their places.
And before I get to hand feed the deadliest bird on earth, I passed by the hatchery and just had to check it out.
Take a look at these two unbelievable birds. Now, these are black palm cockatoos. They're one of the most expensive birds in the pet trade because these animals have such a diminishing habitat. Now, Ventura has committed to an amazing conservation breeding program for these animals, but black palm cockatoos are so unusual. First of all, they have these amazing naked cheeks that will turn bright red when they're feeling defensive or fighting. Secondly, they have these crazy combs. Their hairstyle kind of match mine. And some other facts about them that are absolutely insane. These guys will actually pair up, and at the top of the canopy in far north Queensland, they will lay a single egg, and a single naked chick will be born. Now, why would a featherless bird be born, you're asking yourself? Because these guys nest during monsoon season, and if those babies have feathers, that means those feathers are going to get wet, and if they get wet, the babies are going to get hypothermic, get diseases, all kinds of things. So these are truly a rare crown jewel of the bird world, literally fetching up to $100,000 for one of these birds in the pet trade. But here at Ventura, they've committed to breeding them. So the next thing I want to do is take you to show you how ugly, crazy, weird, and amazing their babies are in every stage of their reproduction. So let's drop off these guys and go check them out. Welcome to the world's most advanced avian incubator room. Here, they'll hatch birds of every single size, shape, and color, from the tiniest to the largest, depending on what needs conservation work. As you can see over here, there's an incubator,
and in this single incubator, you can see eggs of all different shapes, sizes, and colors, all being incubated together.
So it doesn't matter what kind of bird it is, as long as they need conservation help, Ventura will step in to work on that with them. In fact, here you can see just what it's like to witness a baby hatching in real time. So here's a little miracle right here. You can see the egg tube starting to chip through the egg. And in case you're wondering, how do we know whether that bird is doing well or not? Ventara has some incredible technology like this machine right here, the Buddy, where you can take the little egg, put it in here, close that up, turn it on, and within a couple seconds, you're able to read and monitor the heart rate of the hatchling to see if he's healthy. If his heart rate is stable and normal, he will hatch on his own over a set period of time. It could be 1 to 2 days. If his heart rate is irregular, that means that he's in trouble, and Ventara staff need to step in and help him with his hatching to ensure a proper survival. So as you can see here, his heartbeat is absolutely perfect. So we're going to take this guy, put him back in his incubator, and show you what happens next. After monitoring and confirming that he's doing well and he's working out of the egg, you can see that just 15 minutes ago, this little beauty was born right here. So take a look at that. Absolutely amazing. This is life happening in front of our eyes. Newborn hatchlings, and all of these being hatched at an incredible rate to promote and help conservation with the ultimate goal of rewilding birds one day back into habitats where they've been expatriated from. Now, you might think that's cool, and that's the end, but believe it or not, that little grub of a bird is not going to survive on his own. So let's go see the next stage of life. So in here, I've had something extremely special set up for me, and that is getting to look at every single life stage of our black palm cockatoos. From 3 days old, where they're completely naked, to 1.5 months old, to 2.5 months old, to 3.5 months old. We're going to take this lovely mix here that has fruits, seeds, nuts, all healthy, all organic, and show them that it's feeding time by pinching the beak. Look at him go! And giving him a little bit of food right here. Hi, buddy. There you go. So what I'm doing right now is I'm simulating what mom and dad would do. And you see the way that they're trying to swallow the food, because this is all natural. So you hold the beak there, tell them to open up. Come on, buddy. Open. And give them the food like that, and down it goes. How incredible is that to see a bird that is edging towards extinction being reproduced at such an incredible rate here by Ventara, helping protect the species from what otherwise could be an inevitable fate of disappearing from the planet.
A big part of practicing incredible husbandry outside of the hatchery is coming up with new, exciting ways to entertain the animal and enable it to lose its natural instinct. So today, I'm joining in on a super fun enrichment day.
All right, so now we have something very unique coming up, something I've never even heard of seeing in a captive setting. So let's do it.
Yeah. All right, man.
Oh, look at that. So this is Carmen the caracara. And what do caracaras do behaviorally that's so interesting?
So naturally, in the wild, they do this stone flipping behavior. They do this to find food under the rock. Like
snakes and bugs and lizards, yeah. So here we have some fake rocks, and it's like the cup game where there's food hiding underneath them. So let's see her do it, shall we? Whoa, okay, let's go, Carmen. Let's see, where's the food? Where's the food? They use their beak. Oh, look at that. Oh my goodness, that is so neat. Oh, she wastes no time. You can tell this is something she does all the time. Now, this isn't a bird trick, right?
Yeah.
This is something that they do in the wild. Yeah. Why are you doing this here at Ventara?
So we do this for them to exercise, for mental stimulation.
Another Ventara thing that is unparalleled, I would say, to anywhere else in the world, where they're using the natural behavior of the animals and simulating it in a captive environment so that this unbelievable, emblematic bird of Mexico can behave the way that it would behave in the wild. Thank you. I think that is so cool. That's all right. I don't mind. Chicken hand's totally fine with me. I'm going to go see some more birds.
But what I'm about to do is not a game, and I do not recommend anyone at all try this.
Oh my God. Here comes a dinosaur. So how are we safe right now, Sharon? I feel like those dinosaur legs are about to kick me and rip me open at any point in time. Can I feed it?
Yeah, of course you can try.
One at a time or open hand?
Give it about a few at a time, so
okay.
we teach it that way.
That's so scary. And nothing bad happened. That's great. Okay.
As big as they look, they love the fruits, and they are quite capable of jumping high enough to pull down fruits from low-hanging branches as well.
Not to mention jump up and kick you with those feet.
And slash you open as well, because they got lovely tail canopy things with the toes there.
Just an hour ago, I was over on that side, and there was a northern there, and I just walked by and tried to kick me through the fence.
Did you get that really loud trumpeting sound as well?
Terrifying. Made my heart jump into my throat.
So this one, as you can see, is not a complete adult.
Yeah.
The fluid is still changing. It's a younger bird. And this one was taken in for treatments. So now this bird is recovered, and as you can see, it's quite friendly.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, because this bird came in with this foot condition, you guys had to hands-on treat it day in and day out, and that's why it's got this
It
temperament.
was receiving treatment every day, morning and evening.
Wow.
And a lot of physiotherapy for the legs, a lot of calcium supplementation. And as you can see now, this bird is quite used to people. But again, given that it's a younger bird, it still has chances of growing up to come and kill you again.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I'm glad it can turn at any point in time. I hope that's not today. So we're going to keep going before things get crazy. This is one of the most insane things I've ever seen. Just a hand-raised, friendly cassowary hanging out like this right here, walking a velociraptor. So let's go before she decides she doesn't like me.
After walking with the cassowary, I thought it'd be a good idea to check out a couple more insanely unique birds before walking into another giant enclosure.
Look at this guy, one of the craziest birds in the entire world, the shoebill. You can see where that name comes from, this big wooden clog-like shoe for a mouth. But don't be fooled, these guys are phenomenal predators. They'll eat absolutely everything. Snakes, big giant fish, and even crocodiles they've been known to consume with that big bill.
And aside from their aggressive feeding tendencies, they make an even more menacing call that sounds like a machine gun. Mainly used to communicate during nesting and to create mates. This is a weapon. So you may be asking yourself, why is he in this somewhat dry enclosure? Well, he's not.
Turn on the rain! So look at the simulated rainstorm. All the birds are getting so excited. They're all yelling and shrieking because they love it when it rains. The shoebill is sitting out, eating it up. So what's really interesting is when this very shoebill came here to Ventara, he wasn't eating. So what did the team do? They gave him x-rays, and they found that he had 3 fisherman's hooks in his stomach. And they must have been absolutely hurting his stomach because he wouldn't eat. So I was lucky enough to work with the vets here to force feed him cotton. And as he ate the cotton, the hooks entangled in his GI tract, and he actually pooped out all 3 of those fish hooks, and has since then started eating again and living his best life. It's possible that they may go extinct in our lifetime, but not if they're viable insurance colonies like what Ventara has right here.
And if you thought this bird was odd looking, just wait until you see the next one that I'm about to go see. But before that, I have one of the smartest birds in the world and just had to check it out.
Oh my goodness! Dr. Smith, wow, what is going on here? There's so many beautiful birds out here.
Yes.
So who is everybody? Why are they here? What is this jungle that we're hanging out in?
Yeah, these are actually tame birds.
Okay.
Most of them are babies,
Okay.
chicks, and we raise them, and now they are so familiar with us that they can roam around with us, they can stay here. And this is their basking time right now.
Okay.
So for sun.
Oh.
Yes.
And you do that early in the morning when the sun's coming. That makes perfect sense. Now, these birds are known as the most intelligent bird in the world,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So what makes this African grey parrot so intelligent?
Yeah, actually they have the ability to mimic many bird sound. So they can speak, they can learn doing small stuff, like playing with the ball, playing with some sticks or something.
You play soccer?
They're really intelligent.
Now look at this macaw. This is Hyacinth macaw?
Yes.
Look at buddy. Ow! There we go. Whoa. This macaw might be one of the most beautiful birds in the world. I say this all the time, but blue is the rarest color in all of nature.
Yes.
Far fewer blue animals than any other color, and this guy is maybe the most striking blue color of any animal in the world. Now, isn't it crazy that Ventara has about 150 of these hyacinth macaws that they've rescued, and yet these birds can be anything from $5,000 to $50,000 in the United States based on their plumage, based on their background, and everything else. And just look as I walk down the line here. We've got blue and white, cyan red, black, powder gray, brilliant blue, yellow, white, pink. You name it, there's every color of the rainbow with the cockatoos here, and that's why people get them. These birds are so magnificently beautiful, and yet they make terrible pets. When people get them, they think they want them as a beautiful, iconic creature in their house. They realize that they're noisy, they poop a ton, they have stress issues, they require a specialized diet, they require tons of space. Right? And then they end up not wanting them anymore, and Ventara steps in and rescues this unbelievable array of magnificent birds, and this is not even 0.001% of the birds they've rescued here at Ventara. So let's go see some more, right?
I'm headed to another mega aviary, and along the way, I'm seeing quite possibly the ugliest, and then the most stunning birds we'll see on this tour.
Look at this crazy marabou stork. Now, the ancient Egyptians called them the death bringers because they were so ugly, it was said that they would bring death. So you see that big pouch that they have in front of them. Similar to an elephant's ears, they use that for thermal regulation. So there's a certain anatomy on the human body that does something very similar, where the hotter you get, the longer it gets, and the further away from your body it gets. And the colder it gets, the more it shrinks. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you probably should. But they have something very similar under their neck that they use for that temperature regulation. And on the back of the marabou, you see that weird, fleshy red ball there. Now, like a peacock's tail feathers, this is used for sexual selection. The male birds will actually display this to the females to say, come and breed with me. And like vultures, they have a naked neck and a naked head for eating carrion and dead things, because if they're eating all those gross dead things, it can stick to their feathers and it can obviously rot. Now, I've got some very cheeky crowned cranes around here that are trying to attack me. So we're feeding them mealworms right now. Let's see if that hurts. Ow, it sure does. Ow, don't do that. But look at how beautiful the crowned crane is. They have this amazing set of feathers off their back. It's a very interesting, crazy dynamic. But it makes sense, right? If you're a bird that lives on the ground in Africa with all of the various predators, you have to be a badass. And simply put, with a lot of these birds, it's more about the size of the fight in the dog than the dog in the fight. And nothing is more true than with these very aggressive birds that I feel like are going to attack me here any minute. But how cool is this? It's the closest I've ever been to a marabou stork. Really is one of the most weird and ugly birds on the planet with a nutsack on his chest. So
before I check out the mega aviary, I stopped by one more bird, an unexpectedly elegant one, the king vulture.
And you can see where they get that name. I mean, they have this unbelievable beauty, unlike any other vulture species in the world. So you know what's really cool is, in South America where these guys live, the first kill is made, maybe by a puma or a jaguar or something like that. Then in comes the Andean condor. The Andean condor is big and powerful and is able to rip open the stomach lining of whatever the dead animal is and begin the process of decomposition. Now, in the middle rung, after the Andean condor has had his fill, in comes these guys, the king vulture. They're a mid-sized vulture that doesn't have the strength and power that an Andean condor does, but is not so low down on the totem pole that they come in third. So they're kind of in the middle of all the vultures there, and they are by far the most beautiful with their crazy small feathered heads, their red and yellow coloration, that big wattle, their white wings, and then below them are the voracious little black vultures. Now, king vultures, like many vultures around the world, have had tons of problems with DDT, making egg softness and poisoning. Just the list goes on and on with the problems that vultures are facing, which is especially crazy if you consider the fact that vultures are nature's cleanup crew. Without them, we would have dead, rotting things all over the place. Please don't bite me. And that would create all kinds of problems. You're very rude, you know that, buddy? And even though these guys are the most beautiful, most colorful vulture species on planet Earth, they still end up in terrible, weird situations. And all his friends are sitting up there watching us, but it's just amazing to know that these birds do have a safe haven here at Ventara, where no matter what happens in the wild, there will always be an insurance colony.
And the next insurance colony I get to visit isn't just one species. It's for an entire continent of birds, all in one gigantic aviary.
Just look at the size of this habitat. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, wow, Ventara did such a good job on their one and only big cage. This is one of over 2,500 cages of this size and scale. And in this cage alone are 700 birds. Now, look as you walk around. It simulates an Australian outback. There are all these perches. There's food everywhere. There's bushes. There's trees. There's ground birds, there's flying birds. I mean, it's just a magnificent enclosure, and that's what is so fascinating. I don't even know what this is, by the way. Look at how beautiful that guy is. Never even seen one of those before. But that's what's so incredible about Ventara, is they do everything at such a large scale with nothing in mind but the well-being of the animals, and that's what makes things like this so spectacular.
Through world-class care and groundbreaking conservation, Ventara isn't just protecting animals. They're rewriting what's possible for species of the end. So if you
A date that you go on and a date that you chew on are pronounced exactly the same way, but do they come from the same place? Well,
the answer might surprise you. I had a whole thing where I was going like fake dropping it, and then
anyway, so the word date, or the fruit, I should say, has nothing to do with dating nor dating. It actually comes to English through French, ultimately from Latin. Now this word, datinus, meant a gajillion different things. It was a type of mussel, a type of grass, a type of stone, as well as the humble date. But there's something else interesting about this word too, namely this letter. I pronounced it as E, but not every Latin speaker would have. This vowel was quite uncommon in Latin, and most Latin speakers would have pronounced this word something like datus or dactilus rather than dactilus. Some educated people may have gone all the way and pronounced it like I did at the beginning, but that's because this word is a loan word from ancient Greek. Now, in ancient Greek, this word meant finger. Now, you might be thinking that doesn't seem to have anything to do with dates, but I assure you, you're absolutely right. Sure, it might have been the case that ancient Greeks thought dates and fingers looked remarkably similar. But some scholars have suggested that this word coming to mean date, in addition to finger, happened under the influence of one of the Semitic languages, of which Arabic is a contemporary example. For reference, here's the Arabic word for a particular variety of date, and yeah, I can see it. Now, if you're curious about the other kind of date, though, well, as of right now, it's July 17th. No, but that one comes from Latin as well, actually, specifically from the word meaning given. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know if there's anything else you want to...
There's very little opportunity if you're an Indian cricketer for you to have any kind of normalcy in your everyday life. You cannot walk the street. You cannot go to the shops, do anything that is normal. There's always 1,000, 2,000 people that flock around you. In Sri Lanka, we islanders, we're very different. We really live for the day in terms of how we enjoy our sport. And so we don't take ourselves or cricketers too seriously. I had 3 siblings, the oldest. My sister would call me up in the middle of a test match and say, "You haven't come home for lunch, why don't you and your wife and the kids come home for lunch tomorrow?" I said, I really can't do this, because she said, what are you doing that's so important? I said, well, I'm playing a test match for the country. And then she'd go, well, when do you finish? I said, it'll take another 4 days. She'd go, why that long? And then she said, all right, when you finish this thing, you come home for lunch. There's very...
Stop judging people because they pronounce words incorrectly. Damn. Welcome to orthographic interference. I'm not talking about dialect discrimination. That is a completely different entity that requires a focus and just trying to gloss over it and be outright disrespectful. What I'm talking about is the way that the spelling of a word influences the way we perceive the way that it would be pronounced. The often unfair judgment of people who mispronounce words, likely as a result of the fact that they've only seen them but never heard them. Think of that guy from Love Island that said epitome as epitome. You'll see this in words like awry as airy, rhetoric as rhetoric, hyperbole as hyperbole, or the one I wanted to talk about today, posthumous as posthumous. Today I was listening to IDK's mixtape EDTS, which is well worth the 35 minutes, but it has a series of posthumous features, one from DMX, one from MF Doom, and as I was organizing a post about this, I recognized that maybe instead of talking about the album, let's go ahead and talk about not unfairly criticizing people who have only seen words and not ever heard them. Think of all the Harry Potter fans that didn't know how to say Hermione until she shows up on the movies and they're like, damn. To assume a lack of intelligence from orthographic...
That's a bit before the house is prone to get on people.
Stop judging people because they pronounce words incorrectly. Damn. Welcome to orthographic interference. I'm not talking about dialect discrimination. That is a completely different entity that requires a focus and just trying to gloss over it and be outright. Stop judging people because they pronounce words incorrectly. Damn. Welcome to orthographic interference. I'm not talking about dialect discrimination. That is a completely different entity that requires a focus and just trying to gloss over it and be outright disrespectful. What I'm talking about is the way that the spelling of a word influences the way we perceive the way that it would be pronounced. The often unfair judgment of people who mispronounce words, likely as a result of the fact that they've only seen them but never heard them. Think of that guy from Love Island that said epitome as epitome. You'll see this in words like arrive as airy, rhetoric as rhetoric, hyperbole as hyperbole, or the one I wanted to talk about today, posthumous as posthumous. Today I was listening to IDK's mixtape EDTS, which is well...
Hey, you don't see that. That's British English. How does British English work?
Rhetoric.
Rhetoric.
Rhetoric. Rhetoric.
Rhetoric. Rhetoric. Why should you put the cult?
Rhetorical.
Yeah, see, rhetorical. Now, you understand why you say rhetoric? Because it sounds like rhetoric becomes rhetorical. Rhetoric becomes rhetorical. Change in the same fucking... We're starting at AM to filling in the whole pronunciation change. So English pronunciations and spellings are fucking wrong. It's like, what should be pronounced the same? Rhetoric and rhetorical. But it's not rhetorical, it's rhetorical. Thank you, fucking British scholars. That's the problem. English isn't full of proper logic. Most languages don't follow languages.
I don't understand your behavior. The reason American jet engines have dominated for 50 years isn't because the designs are some kind of genius secret. It's because almost nobody else can actually build them. Most people assume the hard part of building a jet engine is the blueprint. It's not. You could hand someone the complete design, and they still couldn't manufacture a single working turbine blade. Here's some perspective. One turbine blade, roughly the size of your palm, can cost as much as a brand new Audi. On top-tier military or high-end engines, a single blade can cost as much as a BMW 5 Series. And here's the part that really throws people. These blades aren't solid. Inside each one is a 3D maze of cooling channels, more intricate than human blood vessels. Coolant flows through that internal labyrinth and sprays out through hundreds of microscopic holes, each one thinner than a strand of hair, creating an invisible film of gas across the blade's surface. A shield that lets it survive flame temperatures in the thousands of degrees. And that's just the cooling system. The material itself is another wall almost nobody can get past. Under that kind of heat, ordinary metal would simply melt. Top-tier engine blades are made from nickel-based single crystal superalloys, meaning the entire blade is one continuous crystal structure, with zero grain boundaries, zero weak points. Very few countries on Earth have actually mastered this casting process. And even after casting, the job isn't done. Every blade gets individually weighed and coated before it ever leaves the factory. During assembly, engineers have to account for weight differences measured in micrograms, because these engines spin at tens of thousands of RPM, and the centrifugal force involved is enormous. A weight variation as small as a strand of hair, multiplied by that speed, is enough to tear the entire engine apart. Once installed, these blades have to survive thousands of hours of extreme heat-cold cycling without cracking or deforming. Zero margin for error. So the real barrier to building jet engines was never the blueprint. It's the alloy formula, the single crystal casting, the cooling geometry, and the microgram level precision. Decades of accumulated industrial expertise that you simply cannot shortcut. The reason American jet engines have dominated for 50 years isn't because the designs are some kind of genius secret. It's because almost nobody else can actually build them. Most people assume the hard part of building a jet engine is the blueprint. It's not. You could hand someone the complete design, and they still couldn't manufacture a single working turbine blade. Here's some perspective. One turbine blade, roughly the size of your palm, can cost as much as a brand new Audi. On top-tier military,
War is a place. The enemy is near.
At the top of the biggest storm spoiler all the way. Yes, you are, brother.
After our victory, we'll remember the story of us Greeks forever.
Let us fight.
My love,
I will miss you. I will await your return.
Helen, my wife, the most beautiful woman in the world. I'll find you again. Warriors of Greece, the enemy is near.
Let them come. I'm the biggest, strongest warrior in all of the land.
Yes, you are.
After our victory, the story of us Greeks will live forever.
Let us fight. My love, I'll miss you. I'll await your return. I will be my wife, the most beautiful person in the world. I will find you again. Warren.
You ever notice how Spanish speakers will pronounce sprite as sprite? Why is that? And it's not just that word, but other words too. Like school and study will become school, study. What's going on? Well, it all has to do with phonotactics, the rules for which a language can put consonants and vowels together to make words. Now, English has pretty lax phonotactics. You're generally allowed to jam a bunch of consonants around a single vowel. Take the word strikes, for example. But Spanish is a bit more restrictive in its phonotactics. You're not allowed to start a word with the letter S, followed by another consonant. Since a word like sprite violates Spanish phonotactics, speakers must go through something called phonotactic repair, which is the way in which speakers will adapt or change a word in order to fit the language's phonotactics. In Spanish, speakers have subconsciously come up with a pretty easy solution. Since sp can't come at the beginning of a word, just add a vowel. And now, the sp combo isn't at the beginning. In fact, this process was pretty regular historically, which is why Latin words like spirito, studio, and scala became Spanish words like espiritu, estudio, escala. And what's super cool is that since every single language has different phonotactics, they'll all perform phonotactic repair differently. For example, Arabic phonotactics is typically fine with having two consonants rub. With three consonants, it's considered one too many. So you'll often hear Arabs pronounce sprite as supply. But Japanese, for example, has extremely restrictive phonotactics. With a few exceptions, you always have to follow every consonant with a vowel. So words like sprite become superaito. And English isn't immune to this either. Sometimes we borrow words from other languages that violate our phonotactics. The only difference is that our phonotactic repair strategy typically doesn't involve adding vowels, but dropping consonants. For example, Greek is fine with starting words with s, and Japanese is fine with starting words with s, but English phonotactics forbid both of them, which is why when we borrow these words from those languages, we drop the initial letter, psychology, tsunami, and this happens way more often than you might think. Have you ever noticed? Don't like him.
Hello, everyone. It's a charm.
Sushi kudasai. Sushi kudasai. Sushi to gohan. Mizu kudasai.
寿司とお茶ください。寿司とお茶ください。
寿司とお茶ください。
茶とパンください。ご飯寿司。
ご飯と寿司。
寿司
とお茶ください。ください。ください。お茶ご飯。水とお茶ください。ご飯。水。水。ご飯。
You know, there's some rough opens that are really quite.
In 1977, Don Merton stood in the forest on the southern tip of Stewart Island, in the dark, and heard something no one had expected to hear again. A boom, low frequency, rolling through the valley floors. Then another, from a ridge half a kilometer away. Cockatoos were still alive. Merton had led 4 two-man teams into the bush. They found 23 freshly carved track and bolt systems, acoustic chambers scraped into the hillside by male cockatoos, used for one purpose only, calling for a mate. Every bird they identified was male, not one female, not one nest, not one chick. The booming carried 5 kilometers through the still air. But on Stewart Island in 1977, no one was answering. 49 years later, in 2026, 95 cockapoo chicks hatched across 4 remote islands off the coast of New Zealand, the most in 31 years, a new record by a wide margin. What happened between that unanswered call and that number is not a miracle story. It is the story of a program that almost got it wrong, not once, but 3 times. A man who refused to stop looking, and a discovery that did not come from a laboratory. It came from a Remo tree. The cockapoo is a New Zealand parrot, and the heaviest parrot on Earth. A large male weighs 4 kilograms. It cannot fly. The keel bone that anchors flight muscles in every other bird has largely disappeared. In its place, legs dense enough to carry a body evolution never expected to leave the ground. It navigates the dark using a scent that humans describe as honey mixed with the inside of an old violin case. Sweet, distinct. You can smell a cockapoo before you see it. The cockapoo can live 90 to 100 years. A bird alive today may have hatched before your grandparents were born. It has the lowest metabolic rate of any parrot on Earth, capable of surviving for days with almost nothing. It is the only parrot in the world with an electric mating system. Males carve bowl-shaped impressions in the hillsides, natural acoustic chambers, and boom night after night for months. The call carries 5 kilometers and still there. The females watch the males they have chosen. A female cockapoo does not breed until she is 9 to 11 years old. She breeds again only every 2 to 6 years. Lose one 5-year-old female today, and the program has lost at minimum 5 years of breeding capacity. When threatened, the cockapoo freezes. It trusts its mind. Against hawks from above, this works. Against a predator hunting by smell, it is the worst possible response. For tens of millions of years, this was enough. Then everything changed. Overnight, The Kakapo lineage adapted over tens of millions of years to an island world with no ground predators. New Zealand's only threats came from the air. For animals that could not fly, stillness was survival. Scent was how you found each other in the dark. Everything that had protected this species, the scent, the stillness, the flightlessness, became almost simultaneously the precise mechanism that nearly wiped it out. 800 years ago, Polynesian voyagers arrived in New Zealand. They called the bird kakapo. Kaka meaning parrot, po meaning night. To Ngai Tahu, the largest iwi of the South Island, the kakapo was Taonga, a treasure woven into story and into the names of the land. The main sanctuary island of the recovery program is called Kakapo. In Te Reo Maui, New Land. The arrivals came with dogs and Pacific rats, animals the kakapo had never encountered at ground level. The bird did not know to run. European settlement in the 19th century added 4 more. The kakapo was not fragile. It was placed into a world that had not evolved for it, and by the 1970s, no one had any idea how to bring it back. The first attempt at recovery predated murder by nearly a century. Richard Henry was a New Zealand naturalist born in 1845. He was not a government scientist. He was a man who had spent years in the Fiordland wilderness watching kakapo disappear and writing letters to officials who had not yet grasped the scale of the problem. In 1894, the government approved his proposal. He began moving kakapo by hand, by rope, to Resolution Island off the Fiordland coast. Nearly 400 birds transported one by one. It was the first organized island sanctuary for wildlife species anywhere in the world. He started moving birds before anyone had agreed on a plan. He understood that waiting was the same as losing. In 1900, Stokes crossed the strait Henry had believed was too wide. Within a few breeding seasons, all 400 birds were gone. He had done everything right. The ocean simply was not wide enough. One century later, the 1995 program built its strategy on what Henry had learned. The islands chosen this time were far beyond the straits, remote enough, with currents strong enough, that Stokes have not crossed since. Every piece of equipment was decontaminated before reaching the islands, but moving the birds was only the beginning. What happened next, no one can predict. Between 1949 and 1973, more than 60 expeditions found 6 kakapo. 5 died within months. In 1974, 18 birds were discovered in Fiordland. Every single one was male. The species cannot rebuild from males alone. In 1980, females were found for the first time in nearly a century, but feral cats were killing them faster than any plan could address. By 1995, after 15 more years of effort, only 3 chicks had survived to adulthood. The total population, 51 birds, 31 male, and 20 female. Those 20 breeding-capable females were the entire reproductive future of the species. Every surviving kakapo was airlifted by helicopter to predator-free islands, Whenua Ho, Anchor Island, and others. All equipment was sterilized before touching the islands. This time, the water barriers were far wider than anything Richard Henry had used. The birds were safe. They were fed. No disease, no predators, and year after year, nothing. By 2005, Every kakapo wore a transmitter sending real-time data around the clock. Rangers knew exactly which birds were moving, which were sitting still. The program became the most intensively monitored wild animal population on Earth. It made the mystery worse, not better. Everything was known except the one thing that mattered. What was the switch? The answer, when it finally came, turned out to be a single species of tree, and almost no one had thought to look at it. The rimu is a native New Zealand conifer that can live 500 years. It fruits heavily only every 2 to 6 years, what botanists call a mast year. Conservationists had noticed early that kakapo bred during rimu mast years. The correlation was clear. The explanation was not. In 2015, Dr. Pamela von Hurst and her team at Massey University published a chemical analysis of rimu fruit in the Journal of Steroid Biochemistry and Molecular Biology. Rimu fruit contained unusually high calcium concentrations. That alone was notable. What was surprising was the vitamin D3. Scientists had long believed significant quantities of D3 in plant tissue were essentially impossible. The kakapo is nocturnal, lives under dense forest canopy, almost never in direct sunlight. It cannot synthesize D3 the way most animals can. Over tens of millions of years, it had found another route, the rimu. The fruit was not just a meal. It was a precise natural supplement, calcium and D3, delivered by the forest on a schedule the bird's own body was waiting for. The mechanism turned out to be even more specific. Unripe rimu fruit, early in the mast season, triggers hormonal changes in the female that initiate breeding behavior. Ripe fruit, arriving weeks later, delivers the D3 and calcium her eggs and growing chicks require. The tree was not just feeding the kakapo, the tree was timing them. Three conditions must be present for kakapo to breed. Rimu mast underway, unripe fruit triggering the behavioral cue, ripe fruit supplying what the eggs need. Remove any one, no breeding. No rimu, no nest. Not as a preference the birds could be coaxed out of, as a hard physiological limit, written into the chemistry of reproduction itself. Once they understood the switch, they could build around it. But building around one problem revealed 3 more, each one stranger than the last. In 2002, the rimu trees on Codfish Island produced one of the best mast seasons on record. The team decided to push. Supplemental food for breeding females, giving them the best possible condition going into nesting season. More than 40 chicks hatched. Then came the sex checks. 70% were male. The biology had a reason. Male kakapo are 30 to 40% larger than females and require more energy to produce. When a female detects extreme abundance, her body shifts toward producing the costlier offspring. For 20 breeding females, it was nearly fatal. The solution was to feed them less, not below breeding threshold, just below the level that triggered the male bias. Sex ratio returned to near 50-50. The population grew by 40% that season. The second crisis was quieter but longer. All kakapo alive today descend from fewer than 30 distinct genetic lineages. The risk compounded over time, weakening immunity and rising probability of birth defects. The solution was artificial insemination. Semen from genetically underrepresented males matched to compatible females by alpha. To encourage collection from reluctant males, the team tried a range of approaches, including remote-controlled vehicles modified to resemble female kakapo. Limited results. The team moved on. What worked was speed. Kakapo semen loses viability within hours. A drone, named the sperm copter by the field team, carries fresh semen across the canopy in 5 to 8 minutes. Fertilization rates rose from 29% to 70%. Shit. In 2019, the program was having its best season on record. Then, aspergillosis swept through Whenua Ho, a fungal lung infection. 21 birds infected. 9 died, including females mid-incubation and chicks in the nest. When eggs moved to incubators, females needed replacements to prevent nest abandonment. The replacements were 3D printed. Weta Workshop, the Lord of the Rings effects studio, fabricated. The females incubated them without apparent hesitation. The birds at highest risk were evacuated off the island for treatment. The number moved. 51. Exactly the size of the entire species in 1995. In 2023, 10 kakapo were introduced to Sanctuary Mountain, inside a 50-kilometer predator exclusion fence. The first group climbed straight over the 2-meter barrier using their beaks as grappling hooks. The fence was redesigned. For 40 years in, the species was still finding the edges of every system humans built to contain it. The question now is whether any of it had been worth it. Over 31 years, the program has consumed tens of millions of New Zealand dollars, up to 10 times more in active breeding seasons than in quiet ones. Decades of funding, often with no visible progress. Drones carrying semen over forest canopy. Remote-controlled vehicles posing as female parents. Genetic matchmaking by algorithm. Eggs fabricated by a film studio. At what point does this stop being the recovery of a wild species and become the permanent maintenance of something that cannot survive without us? The first counter-argument is about irreversibility. The kakapo's coupling with the rimu tree, the hormonal cascade triggered by unripe fruit, the D3 delivery time to egg formation, took tens of millions of years to develop. Once it is gone, it cannot be rebuilt. The second is ecological. Fossilized kakapo dung contains the pollen of the woodbugs, Dactylanthus taylori, at concentrations suggesting the bird was a primary seed disperser. When it disappears, the forest shifts in ways that persist for centuries. The third is cultural. The kakapo is Kaunga to Naitapu. Its recovery is not a government wildlife program to those communities. It is the restoration of something that was taken. The question of worth was never purely economic. New Zealand is the only country that has sustained this across 9 governments without cancelling. That institutional patience is rarer than the kakapo itself. In 2026, the rimu trees across the southern islands produced a mass unlike any in living memory. The kakapo did exactly what they had been programmed to do for tens of millions of years. 80 nests, more than 250 eggs, 95 chicks, shattering the 2019 record of 73. Every Friday through the breeding season, field rangers updated the running tally with a marker pin on the refrigerator door at the field camp. The number climbed each week. By the final count, people who had spent their careers watching this program could barely believe what they were looking at. In 1995, 20 breeding-capable females. Today, 83. Total population, 236, the highest in 50 years. The Department of Conservation's target is 150 breeding females. The gap is the smallest it has ever been. Way out of his chair, hovered uncertainly.
Before sinking as low in his chair as his lanky frame permitted. "That's enough," Hermione said forcefully to Fred and George, both of whom looked up in mild surprise. "Yeah, you're right," said George, nodding. "This dosage looks strong enough, doesn't it? I told you this morning you can't test your rubbish on students." "They're paying them," said Fred indignantly. "I don't care. It could be dangerous." "Rubbish," said Fred. "Calm down, Hermione, they're fine," said Lee reassuringly, from first year to first year, inserting purple speaks into their open mouths. "Yeah, look, they're coming round now," said George. First years were indeed. Several were so shocked to find themselves lying on the floor, or dangling off their chairs, that Harry was sure Fred and George had not warned them what the sweets were going to do. "Feel all right?" said George kindly to the small, dark-haired girl lying at his feet. I think so," she said shakily. "Excellent," said Fred happily. But the next second, Hermione had snatched both his clipboard and the paper bag of fainting fancies from his hands. "It is not excellent." "Of course it is. They're alive, aren't they?" said Fred angrily. "You can't do this. What if you made one of them really ill?" "You're not going to make them ill. We've already tested them all ourselves. This is just how everyone reacts to it. If you don't stop doing it, I'm going to put us in detention," said Fred, in an "I'd like to see you try it" voice. "Make us write lines," said George, smirking. Onlookers all over the room were laughing. Hermione drew herself up to her full height. Her eyes were red, and her bushy hair seemed to crackle with electricity. "No," she said, her voice quivering with anger, "but I will write to your mother." "You wouldn't," said George, horrified, taking a step back from her. "Oh, yes, I would," said Hermione grimly. "I can't stop you eating the stupid things yourselves, but you're not to give them to the first years." Fred and George looked thunderstruck. It was clear that as far as they were concerned, Hermione's threat was way below the belt. With a last threatening look at them, she thrust Fred's clipboard and the bag of fancy back into his arms and stalked back to her chair by the fire. Ron was now so low in his seat that his nose was roughly level with his knees. "Thank you for your support, Ron," Hermione said acidly. "You handled it fine by yourself," Ron mumbled. Hermione stared down at her blank piece of paper for a second, then said edgily, "It's no good. I can't concentrate now. I'm going to bed." She wrenched her bag open. Harry thought she was about to put her books away, but instead she pulled out two misshapen woolly objects, placed them carefully on the table by the fireplace, covered them with a few screwed-up bits of parchment and a broken quill, and stood back to admire the effect. "In the name of murder, are you doing?" said Ron, watching her as though fearful for her sanity. "They're hats for house elves," she said briskly, now stuffing her books back into her bag. "I did them over the summer. I'm a really slow knitter without thinking, but now I'm school, I should be able to make lots more." "You're leaving out hats for the house elves," said Ron slowly. "And you're covering them up with rubbish first." "Yes," said Hermione defiantly, swinging her bag onto her back. "That's not on," said Ron angrily. "You're trying to trick them into picking up the hats. You're setting them free when they might not want to be free." "Of course they want to be free," said Hermione at once, though her face was turning pink. "Don't you dare touch those hats, Ron." She left. Ron waited until she had disappeared through the door to the girls' dormitories, then cleared the rubbish off the woolly hats. "They should at least see what they're picking up," he said firmly. Anyway, he rolled up the parchment on which he had written the title of Snape's essay. "There's no point trying to finish this now. Can't do it without Hermione. I haven't got a clue what they're supposed to do with moonstones. Have you?" Harry shook his head, noticing as he did so that the ache in his right temple was getting worse. He thought of the long essay of giant walls, and the pain stabbed at him sharply. Knowing perfectly well that when the morning came he would regret not finishing his homework that night, he piled his books back into his bag. "I'm going to bed too." He passed Seamus on the way to the door leading to the dormitories, but did not look at him. Harry had a fleeting impression that Seamus had opened his mouth to speak. He sped up and reached the soothing peace of the stone spiral staircase without to endure any more provocation. The following day dawned just as leaden and rainy as the previous. Hagrid was still absent from the staff table at breakfast. "But on the plus side, no Snape today," said Ron bracingly. Hermione yawned widely and poured herself some coffee. She looked mildly pleased about something, and when Ron asked her what she had to be so happy about, she simply said, "The hats have gone. Seems the house elves do want freedom after all." "I wouldn't bet on it," Ron told her cuttingly. "They might not count as clothes. They didn't look anything like hats to me, more like woolly bladders." Hermione did not speak to him all the more. Double charms was succeeded by double transfiguration. Professor Flitwick and Professor McGonagall spent the first 5 minutes of their lesson lecturing the class on the importance of OWLs. "Remember," said little Professor Flitwick, perched as ever on a pile of books so that he could see over the top of his desk, "is that these examinations may influence your futures for many years to come. If you have not already given serious thought to your careers, now is the time to do so. And in the meantime, I'm afraid we shall be working harder than ever to ensure that you all do yourselves justice." They then spent over an hour revising summoning charms, which according to Professor Flitwick were bound to come up in their OWL, and he rounded off the lesson by setting them their largest ever amount of charms homework. It was the same, if not worse, in Transfiguration. "You cannot pass an OWL," said Professor McGonagall grimly, "without serious application, practice, and study. I see no reason why everyone else's power should not achieve an OWL in transfiguration. They put in the work. Never let sad, disbelieving words. Yes, you too, Longbottom, said Professor McGonagall. There's nothing wrong with your work, is it? So, today, we are starting vanishing spells. These are easier than conjuring spells, which you would not usually attempt until NEWT level. They are still among the most difficult magic you can be tested on in your OWL. He was quite right. Harry found the vanishing spells horribly difficult. By the end of a double period, neither he nor Ron had managed to vanish the snails on which they were practicing, though Ron said hopefully he thought his looked a bit pink. Hermione, on the other hand, successfully vanished her snail on the third attempt, earning her a 10-point bonus for Gryffindor from Professor McGonagall. She was the only person not given homework. Everybody else was told to practice the spell overnight, ready for a fresh attempt on their snails the following afternoon. Now panicking slightly about the amount of homework they had to do, Harry and Ron spent their lunch hour in the library, looking up the uses of moonstones in potion making. Still angry about Ron's slurred Hermione did not join them. By the time they reached care of magical creatures in the afternoon, Harry's head was aching again. The day had become cool and breezy, and as they walked down the sloping lawn towards Hagrid's cabin on the edge of the Forbidden Forest, they felt the occasional drop of rain on their faces. Professor Grubbly Plank stood waiting for the class some 10 yards from Hagrid's front door, a long trestle table in front of them, laden with tools. As Harry and Ron reached her, a loud shout of laughter sounded behind them. Turning, they saw Draco Malfoy striding towards them, surrounded by his usual gang of slithering cronies. They clearly said something highly amusing, because Crabbe, Goyle, Captain Parkinson and the rest continued to snigger heartily. United! And, judging by the way they all kept looking at Harry, he was able to guess the subject of the joke without too much difficulty. Everyone here! Barked Professor Slytherins, Gryffindors had arrived. Let's crack on then. Tell me what these things are called. She indicated the heap of twigs in front of them. Hermione's hand shot into the air. Behind her back, Malfoy did a buck-toothed imitation of her, jumping up and down in eagerness to answer a question. Pansy Parkinson gave a shriek of laughter that turned almost at once into a scream as the twigs on the table leapt into the air and revealed themselves to be what looked like tiny pixie-ish creatures made of wood, each with knobbly brown arms and legs, 2 twig-like fingers at the end of each hand, with a funny, flat, bark-like face in which a pair of beetle-brown eyes glittered. "Ooh," said Parvati Lavender, thoroughly irritating Harry. Anyone would have thought Hagrid had never shown them impressive creatures. Admittedly, the flogger ones had been a bit dull, but the salamanders and hippogriffs had been interesting enough, and the blast-ended screws, perhaps too much so. "Kindly keep your voices down, girls," said Professor Grubbly Plank sharply, scattering a handful of what looked like brown rice among the stick creatures, who immediately fell upon the food. "So, anyone know the names of these creatures? Miss Granger?" "Bell truffles," said Hermione. "They're tree guardians, usually live in wand trees." 5 points to Gryffindor," said Professor Grubbly Plank. "Yes, these are bone truffles, and as Miss Granger rightly says, they generally live in trees whose wood is of wand quality. Anybody know what they eat?" "Woodlice," said Hermione promptly, which explained why Lord Harry had taken to eat grains of brown rice for moving. "But fairy eggs, if they can get them." "Good girl, take another 5 points. So, whenever you need leaves or wood from a tree in which a boat trucking lodges, it is wise to have a gift of woodlice ready to distract or placate it. They don't look dangerous, and if angered, they will try to gouge at human eyes with their fingers, which, as you can see, are very sharp and not at all desirable near the eyeballs. So, if you'd like to gather closer, take a few woodlice and a boat truckle, Not here for one between three. Study them more closely. I want a sketch from each of you with all body parts labeled by the end of the lesson. Class surged forwards around the trestle table. Harry deliberately circled around the back so that he ended right next to Professor Grumbly Clank. Where's Hagrid? He asked her, while everyone else was choosing Bowtruckle. Never you mind, said Professor Grumbly Clank impressively, which had been her attitude last time Hagrid had failed to turn up for a class 2. Smirking all over his pointed face, Draco Malfoy leaned across Harry and seized the largest Bowtruckle. Maybe, said Malfoy in an undertone, so that only Harry could hear him. The stupid red oafs got himself badly eaten. Maybe you will, if you don't shut up, said Harry under the side of his mouth. Maybe he's been messing with stuff that's too big for him, if you get drift. Malfoy walked away, smirking with his shoulder at Harry, who felt suddenly sick. Did Malfoy know something? His father was a Death Eater. What if he had information about Hagrid's fate that had not yet reached the ears of the Order? He hurried back around the table to Ron and Hermione, who were squatting on the grass some distance away and attempting to persuade a Bowtruckle to remain still long enough for them to draw it. Harry pulled out parchment and quill, crouched down beside the others, and related in a whisper what Malfoy had just said. Dumbledore would know if something had happened to Hagrid, said Hermione at once. It's just playing into Malfoy's hands to look right. It tells him we don't know exactly what's going on. We've got to ignore it. Here, look at for a moment, just so I can draw its face. Yes, came Malfoy's clear drawl from the group nearest them. Father was talking to the minister just a couple of days ago, you know, and it sounds as though the minister is really determined to crack down on some standard teaching in this place. So even if that overgrown moron does show up again, he'll probably be sent packing straight away. Ouch! Harry had gripped the Bowtruckle so hard that it had almost snapped, and it had just taken a great retaliatory swipe at his hand with its sharp fingers, leaving 2 long, deep cuts there. Harry dropped it. Crabbe and Goyle, who had already been guffawing at the idea of Hagrid being sacked, laughed still harder as the Bowtruckle set off at full tilt towards the forest, the little moving stick man soon swallowed up among the tree roots. When the bell echoed distantly over the grounds, Harry rolled up his blood-stained Bowtruckle picture and marched off to herbology with his hand wrapped in Hermione's handkerchief, and Malfoy's derisive laughter still ringing in his ears. If he calls Hagrid a moron one more time, snarled Harry. Harry, don't go picking around with Malfoy. Don't forget he's a prefect now. He can make life difficult for you. Wow, I wonder what it'd be like to have a difficult life, said Harry sarcastically. Ron laughed, but Hermione frowned. Together they traipsed across the vegetable patch. The sky still appeared unable to make up its mind whether it wanted to rain or not. I just wish Hagrid would hurry up and get back, that's all, said Harry in a low voice as they reached the greenhouses. And don't say that Grumbly Clank was a better teacher, he added, threateningly. I wasn't going to, said Hermione calmly. Because she'll never be as good as Hagrid, said Harry firmly, fully aware that he had just experienced an exemplary care of magical creatures lesson and was thoroughly annoyed about it. The door of the nearest greenhouse opened, and some orphans spilled out of it, including Ginny. Hi, she said brightly as she passed. A few seconds later, Luna Lovegood emerged, trailing behind the rest of the class, a smudge of earth on her nose, and her hair tied in a knot on the top of her head. When she saw Harry, her prominent eyes seemed to bulge excitedly, and she made a beeline straight for him. Many of his classmates turned curiously to watch. Luna took a great breath, and then said, without so much as a preliminary hello, I believe he who must not be named is back, and I believe you fought him and escaped from it.
Something there!
Said Harry awkwardly. I am ready for you! Like a pair of orange radishes earrings. Parvati and Lavender seemed to have noticed as they were both pointing at their nose. You can laugh! Luna said, her voice rising, apparently under the impression that Parvati and Lavender were laughing at what she had said, rather than what she was wearing. But people used to believe there were no such things as the glimmering humdinger or the crumpled horned snorkack. Well, they were right, weren't they? Said Hermione impatiently. There weren't any such things as the glimmering humdinger or the crumpled horned snorkack. Luna gave her a withering look and flounced away, radishes swinging madly. Parvati and Lavender were not the only ones hooting with laughter now. Do you mind not offending the only people who believe me? Harry asked Hermione as they made their way into class. Oh, for heaven's sake, Harry, you can do better than her, said Hermione. Gin's told me all about her. Apparently she'll only believe in things as long as there's no proof of false. I wouldn't expect anything else from someone whose father works for Quinlan. Harry thought of the sinister winged forces he had seen on the night he had arrived, and how Luna had said she could see them too. His spirit sank slightly. A chicken nugget. But before he could devote much more thought to the matter, Ernie Macmillan stepped up to him. I want you to know, Potter, he said in a loud, carrying voice, that it's not only weirdos who support you. I personally believe you 100%. My family have always stood firm behind Dumbledore, and so do I. Thanks very much, Ernie, said Harry, taken aback but pleased. Ernie might be pompous on occasions like this, but Harry was in a mood to deeply appreciate a vote of confidence from somebody who did not have radishes dangling from their ears. Ernie's words had certainly wiped the smile from Lavender Brown's face, and as he turned to talk to Ron and Hermione, Harry caught Seamus's expression, which looked both confused and defiant. To nobody's surprise, Professor Sprout started their lesson by lecturing them about the importance of OWLs. Harry wished all the teachers would stop doing this. He was starting to get an anxious, twisted feeling in his stomach every time he remembered how much homework he had to do. A feeling that worsened dramatically when Professor Sprout gave
That's the
them
thing.
yet another
Very
essay
important.
at
They
the
have
end
to
of
tell you.
class.
Psychological issue of
Tired
that.
and smelling strongly of dragon dung, Professor Sprout's preferred
The idea
type
is to
of
give
fur.
you a...
The Gryffindors trooped back up to the castle an hour and a half later.
How do you
No one
react to
talking
that?
very much. It had been another long day. As Harry was starving, and he had his first detention with Umbridge at 5 o'clock, he headed straight for dinner without dropping off his bag in Gryffindor Tower so that he could bolt something down before facing whatever she had in store for him. He had barely reached the entrance of the Great Hall, however, when a loud and angry voice yelled, "Oi, Potter!" "What now?" he muttered wearily, turning to face Angelina Johnson, who looked as though she was in a towering temper. "I'll tell you what now," she said, marching straight up to him and poking him hard with her finger. "How come you landed yourself in detention for 5 o'clock on Friday?" "What?" said Harry. "Why, yeah, keeper tryouts." Now he remembers, snarled. "Didn't I tell you I wanted to do a tryout with the whole team and find someone who fitted in with everyone? Didn't I tell you I booked the Quidditch pitch specially? And now you've decided you're not going to be there?" "I didn't decide not to be there," said Harry, stung by the injustice of these words. "I got detention from that Umbridge woman just because I told her the truth about you-know-who." "Well, you could just go straight to her and ask her to let you off on Friday," said Angelina fiercely. "And I don't care how you do it. Tell her you know who's a figment of your imagination, if you like. Just make sure you're there." She stormed away. "You know what?" Harry said to Ron and Hermione as they entered the Great Hall. "I think we've better check the bloody United whether Oliver Wood's been killed during a training session, because Angelina seems to be channeling his spirit. What do you reckon are the odds of Umbridge letting you off on Friday?" said Ron skeptically as they sat down at the Gryffindor table. "Less than 0, said Harry glumly, tipping lamb chops into his plate and starting to eat. Better try though, hadn't I? I offered to do 2 more detentions or something. I swallowed a mouthful of potato and added, I hope she doesn't keep me too long this evening. You realise we've got to write 3 essays. Practice vanishing spells for McGonagall, work out a counter-charm for Flitwick, finish the bow truckle drawing, and start that stupid dream diary for Trelawney. Ron, alone, but for some reason glanced up at the ceiling. And it looks like it's going to rain. What's to do with our room? Said Hermione, her eyebrows raised. Nothing, said Ron at once, with ears reddening. At 5 to 5, Harry bade the other 2 goodbye and set off for Umbridge's office on the 3rd floor. When he knocked on the door, she called, "Come in a sugary voice. He entered cautiously, looking around. He had known this office under 3 of its previous occupants. In the days when Gilderoy Lockhart had lived here, it had been plastered in beaming portraits of himself. When Lupin had occupied it, it was likely you would meet some fascinating dark creature in a cage or tank, as it came to call. In the imposter Moody's days, it had been packed with various instruments and artifacts for the detection of wrongdoing and concealment. Now, it looked totally unrecognizable. The surfaces had all been draped in lace covers and cloths. There were several vases full of dried flowers, each one residing in its own doily. And on one of the walls was a collection of ornamental plates, each decorated with a large technicolor kitten wearing a different bow around its neck. These were so foul that Harry stared at them, transfixed, until Professor Umbridge spoke again. "Good evening, Mr. Potter." Harry started and looked around. He had not noticed her at first because she was wearing a lurically flowered set of robes that blended only too well with the table on the desk behind her. "Evening, Professor Umbridge," Harry said stiffly. "Sit down," she said, pointing towards a small table draped in lace, beside which she had drawn up a straight-backed chair. A piece of blank parchment lay on the table, apparently waiting for her. Said Harry without moving. "Professor Umbridge, before we start, I want to ask you a favor." Her bulging eye. Well, I'm in the Gryffindor Quidditch team, and I was supposed to be at the tryouts for the new keeper at 5 o'clock on Friday, and I was wondering whether I could skip detention that night and do it another day instead. He knew long before he reached the end of his sentence. It was really cool. "Oh, no," said Umbridge, smiling so widely that she looked as though she had just swallowed a particularly juicy flower. "Oh, no. This is your punishment for spreading evil, nasty, attention-seeking stories, Mr. Potter. The punishment certainly cannot be just to suit the guilty one's convenience. No. Here, It ought to reinforce the lesson I am trying to teach you." Harry felt the blood surge in his head and heard a thumping noise in his ears. So he told evil, nasty, attention-seeking stories, did he? She was watching him with her head slightly to one side, still smiling widely, as though she knew exactly what he was thinking, and was waiting to see whether he would start shouting again. With a massive effort, Harry looked away from her, dropped his school bag beside the straight-backed chair, and sat down. "There," said Umbridge sweetly. "We're getting better at controlling our temper already, aren't we? Now, you're going to be doing some lines for me, Mr. Potter. Not with your quill," she added, as Harry bent down to open his bag. "You're going to be using a rather special one of mine. There you are." She handed him a long, thin, black quill with an unusually sharp point. "I want you to write, 'I must not tell lies,'" she told him softly. "How many times?" Harry asked with a creditable imitation of politeness. Oh, as long as it takes for the message to sink in, said Umbridge sweetly. Off you go. She moved over to her desk, sat down, and bent over a stack of parchment that looked like essays for marking. Harry raised the sharp black quill, then realized what was missing. You haven't given me any ink, he said. Oh, you won't need ink, said Professor Umbridge, with the merest suggestion of a laugh in her voice. Harry placed the point of the quill on the paper and wrote, I must not tell lies. He let out a gasp of pain. The words had appeared on the parchment in what appeared to be shiny red ink. At the same time, the words had appeared on the back of Harry's right hand, cut into his skin as though traced there by a scalpel. Yet even as he stared at the shining cut, the skin healed over again, leaving the place where it had been slightly redder than before, but quite smooth. Harry looked round at Umbridge. She was watching, a wide, toad-like mouth stretched in a smile. Yes? Nothing, said Harry quietly. He looked back at the parchment, placed the quill on it once more, wrote, I must not tell lies, and felt the searing pain on the back of his hand for a second time. Once again, the words had been cut into his skin. Once again, they healed over seconds later. And on it went. Again and again, Harry wrote the words on the parchment in what he soon came to realize was not ink, but his own blood. And again, the words were cut into the back of his hand, healed, and reappeared the next time he set quill to parchment. Darkness fell outside Umbridge's window. Harry did not ask when he would be allowed to stop. He did not even check his watch. He knew she was watching him for signs of weakness, and it was not going to show him, not even if he had to sit there all night, cutting open his own hand with this quill. Come here, she said, after what seemed hours. He stood up. His hand was stinging, painful. When he looked down at it, he saw that the cut had healed, but that the skin there was red raw. Hand, she said. He extended it. She took it in her own. Harry repressed a shudder as she touched him with her thick, stubby fingers, on which she wore a number of ugly old rings. I don't seem to have made much of an impression yet, she said, smiling. Well, we'll just have to try again tomorrow evening, won't we? You may go. Harry left her office without a word. The schoolroom was quite deserted. It was surely past midnight. He walked slowly up the corridor. Then, when he had turned the corner and was sure she would not hear him, broke into a run. He had not time to practice vanishing spells, had not written a single dream in his dream diary, and had not finished the drawing of the Bowtruckle, nor had he written his essays. He skipped breakfast next morning to scribble down a couple of made-up dreams for divination in the first lesson, and was surprised to find a dishevelled Ron keeping him company. How come you didn't do it last night? Harry asked as Ron stared wildly around the Commonwealth for inspiration. Ron, who had been fast asleep when Harry got back to the dormitory, muttered something about doing other stuff, bent low over his parchment, and scrawled a few words. That'll have to do, he said, slamming the diary shut. I've said I dreamed I was buying a new pair of shoes. She can't get anything weird out of that, can she? They hurried off to North Tower together. How was detention with Umbridge, anyway? What did she make you do? Harry hesitated for a fraction of a second, then said, lines. Oh, that's not too bad, then, eh? Said Ron. Nope, said Harry. Hey, I forgot, did she let you off for Friday? No, said Harry. Ron groaned sympathetically. It was another bad day for Harry. He was one of the worst in Transfiguration, not having practiced vanishing spells at all. He had to give up his lunch hour to complete the picture.